Welcome to our vibrant network of governance, risk, compliance, and cybersecurity leaders. We share cutting-edge insights, best practices, and innovative strategies to empower professionals in navigating the dynamic cyber threat landscape. Join Circolo de CISO to ignite resilience and data protection across industries.
Welcome to another edition of learnings or lessons learned from major data breaches in 2024. And we're going to discuss various high-profile breaches that has happened in the last 6 months. And we're going to see what specific lessons we can learn from each of these incidents so that we can apply that in our environment and ensure our security posture is elevated. So there will be multiple episodes in this conversation, which will be, hosted in our YouTube channel on several days. So I would request all of you to look out for those videos. And to have this conversation, a dear friend of mine has kindly consented to spend time with me to talk about these different breaches. He is Nishant Raman, Head of Cybersecurity, Iskek Heavy Engineering Limited. Comes with several years of experience. He has worked with global brands such as Etisalat, Wipro Technologies, Spectrum Network Solutions, and Styria, and the list goes on. And he has held several roles, but what is very unique about this gentleman, my friend, is that he has worked all along in cybersecurity, or we would call it information security, and today it is cybersecurity. All along, his work experience has been in the security domain. That's a very, very unique experience. So, Nishant, thank you so much for making time to, talk about these learnings from the different breaches. And I also want to thank you in advance because you're going to spend several days with me talking about these different use cases. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks a lot for giving this opportunity to me, in fact, to come here and discuss about the breaches, and that will definitely the purpose is to discuss about the breaches will be to learning, right? To learning and our forum which we do have and the industry we belongs to, so that we can also spread the informations to everyone, so that they can also, if someone is not following or someone is looking for such kind of information, so they can also get the information about it.
Absolutely. So viewers, Nishant is no stranger to Sri Lanka. He has spent time in Sri Lanka. He has done work with several companies. So he's anyway based in India, Delhi. And today the topic which we chose of a company which is called 23andMe. They're very special because their work is in the DNA profiling. They use the saliva to do the DNA testing, and they can also identify or determine ancestry of an individual. So they can identify who the uncles, cousins, aunts, grandparents, and so on and so forth. So while this is novel in this part of the world, but I guess the criminal investigation agencies, they make use of such data to profile people as well. So it is very important that this sensitive data, what is being collected, processed, and stored, is secured. Unfortunately, this company was breached. Right? Somebody was able to gain unauthorized access to the genetic data and they lost approximately 6.9 million user records. So we don't know the extent of information which was breached, but all what we know is 6.9 million records were breached. So, Nishant, I would like you to walk our viewers through what went wrong, what do we learn from this breach, so that we can take precautionary measures that we will not have a similar incident in our own environments. Nishant?
So as you mentioned that, I mean, this nice and 23andMe, it's the service they, what kind of service they give. It's very important because they keep the record of the personal informations, right? And the family informations of their customers, the family tree. In fact, they used to keep the percentage. In fact, the percentage of DNA they shares with their family. That's the records. So these are very important and critical informations about the individuals, right? And that's get hacked, and because due to the unauthorized access to their systems. Uh, how this happens is very important because once you go through this breach, the one term it's comes which will they used to mention that uh, password stuffing attack, right? And that was the attack. Attacker have used this technique to perform it. And this is, if you if you see in a technical word, this is very simple attack. It's I would say even attacker have not use their much mind, rather the user have did these very silly mistakes, you know because generally attacks
Basically,
use
everything was given in
fish.
a platter.
Exactly, right. So what is password stuffing attack? It's especially when the user have the tendency to reuse the passwords, right? And because nowadays we do have multiple accounts, so we don't want to keep passwords, different passwords, and remember those passwords. So it's very difficult to process. And then so that it's let's reuse the password and keep. So what happened? There is so many platforms which can get easily breached, and from the breached forum, the attackers collects those based credentials, and then they do the password stuffing attack, which means they will use that password to brute force attack, performing a brute force attack to see where this can be used on in the different on other different platforms, right? And that's exactly happened with the 23andMe. So now question is how this could have been prevented,
Prevented.
and in how in future other organization can learn and what the practice should be followed, right? So the most important part is definitely the two-factor authentication is very important, which was missing in this case. So I mean, sitting in the 2024, and we are talking about still that two-factor authentication should be there, that we can assume company like 23andMe definitely have all that technical control in their environment. Security, at least the security controls, right? The basic, whatever we could talk about it, but still the two-factor authentication was missing. So this is very important part. Then, of course, if you see the what strategy and practice should be there, you should have a list of practices which you should follow. The very basic things also, but these things are also missing in the organization, right? For example, password policy. It's not that you are just making the password policy. You have to ensure the password policy is getting followed in the organization by the users, and that should be by the technical controls should be also implemented so that it should be enforced from the organization side, right? Then use the lockout mechanisms. When such kind of attack is happening, it could be prevented from the outside if the lockout mechanism is there, so that any bot cannot work, right? Use the captcha challenge to stop such kind of things, so that if the bot is there, so you must have seen so many challenges are nowadays. You choose the screen and all that. You can use such kind of things. Then use the user behavior pattern, you have to see what kind of pattern is happening. So when I'm talking about monitoring and all that, you should be always do see what kind of pattern is behavior is happening in our environment or the applications, which is especially the publicly exposed application. You need to be always see, record, monitoring, always do. You should have WAF implemented in your organization. Whenever if you have a critical application, it should be make sure it is behind the WAF so that any attacks happening on your application layer, you will be at least it get prevented by the WAF, right? Then do the anomaly detections. Rate limiting is very important. Whenever it's doing, you need to be keep rate limiting so that you will have any attack is happening, it will be get disconnected. It's passing the threshold. So this is very important. Then from the solution point of view, identity access management, it is very important. It can play a very important role in the organization to manage the life cycle of the accounts, user accounts. So you identity access management can implement two-factor authentication automatically from its principle. It's because it works in that way, and then you can it will also ensure that what kind of privileges should be to the organization, what to the users, or how the user lifecycle should be. If the user is left to the organization, it should be what you call revoke those privileges from the accounts. So these things are very important factor which should be followed by the organization. But not last and least, apart from all this, the user training, I would emphasize on this point. User training is also very important. But keep on share the new trends of attacks, cyber attacks, what is happening in the throughout the world. Users should be aware about it. Let them train about. Give some information about these things also, along with the do's and don'ts. What you are talking about in the organizations. Of course, organizations used to have. You must have seen so many posters are applied on the organizations everywhere. Along with this is also important. You should be aware about the new trends. These are the very important factors, right?
Interesting and very important points. I'll start from the reverse. User education,
Right.
user behavior. Behavioral change
Exactly.
is very, very important. No matter how sophisticated controls can become, if the users are negligent, then we are inviting trouble. The technical controls can, in essence, can make it a little harder for the intruder to penetrate. So it's very important that, as you rightly said, password policy and the implementation of the policy is also very, very important. You mentioned about two-factor authentication. I would also use the word two-step verification. Multiple ways an authentication can be implemented is also important. And I think today the vendors are talking about phishing-resistant authentication or identities to be used.
Right.
So moving away from passwords and looking at biometric-related authentication mechanism so that you can minimize those threats. But all of them can't be done overnight. It's a gradual transition for every organization.
Exactly.
So, Nishant, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And as we progress on various episodes, we would be talking about API security. We would be talking specifically in terms of risk pertaining to API security. We would also be talking about ransomware attacks. Then we would also talk about the stolen credentials or credential stuffing related attacks, right? So these are different conversations which we are going to have in the upcoming episodes. So I request the viewers to keep a view and keep an eye on those episodes which are yet to be published.
Sure.
So Nishant, thank you so much for taking time to walk us through the importance of identity protection, and also you briefly touched on the importance of securing a workload or an application. Thank you so much.
Exactly. I mean, thank you. Thanks.